Morena tātou, tēnā koutou, ko aroha nui West tēnei, huri a hau no te aroa waka, ai noho anau ki Rotorua. Ko au tēnā, my name's Aroha Nui West. I am an uri of te aroa waka no tūhaurangi Ngāti Wāhia no Ngāti Whakauē. Born and raised in Rotorua, moved around, travelled, lived in Tāmaki, and now back in the centre of the universe in Rotorua nui a Kahumatuma Moi. And I have the privilege of sharing this kōrero with you all today, Whai Wāhitanga, engaging rangatahi in a meaningful way. And my expertise is that I am a rangatahi and that I have worked in a few professional spaces. And I've also had the absolute privilege of working with Rangatahi Regen, who are in this kōrero, who have tuned in. So just want to give them a shout out. They are a body that supports young people and centres youth leadership, rangatahi leadership. So I just wanted to give them a shout out. They actually trained me up in facilitation, and a lot of the kōrero that I'm sharing today pertains to that sort of framework that they provided me with. So tēnā koutou. And I'm a CSI associate, and I also, in my other hat, I work for Parakore Marae Incorporated. So my sort of mahi is all about climate action and behavioural change and sort of grassroots supporting our community with the education and resources to do better, to live parakore and to live connected to our taiao, to our natural world, and honouring our whānau atua. So that's sort of who I am and what I am about. Nō reira, I'll kick us off with karakia, and then I'll pass it to Michelle for your quick intro as well. Ka pai. E kore, e pō, e ao. Takiri mai te ata, ko rihinga manu, tino awatea, ka ao, ka awatea, tihei, mauri ora. Kia ora, Michelle, I'll just pass it over to you. She just has a quick poll before we get started in the kōrero.
Yeah, morena koutou, and ko Michelle Gallagher tōku ingoa, and I am here to support Arohanui and our amazing associates. So just welcoming you all here today to this Te Pūaha talk. I will pop a little thing on right now. So Te Pūaha Talks is a series by supported by Foundation North, and they're interested to see how many of their grantees are coming along. So we're just going to ask you that in a poll. If you can get your little voting fingers out, thank you. And to date, Te Pūaha Talks to date, we've presented on all sorts of amazing topics. So just wanting to kind of let you know there's some sessions about facilitation, collaboration, evaluation, wellbeing, other cool tools that might be useful for your community organisation. So I'll pop a link in the chat after this. But thank you. Looks like you've all been voting away. So yeah, kia ora, and yeah, thank you so much. Over to you, Arohanui.
Awesome. Thanks, Michelle. Ka pai, we'll get... Oh, it's not even letting me. Oh, here we go. An overview. This is actually essentially a brain dump. I really took the word rangatahi and ran with it. And I'm going to do this in my own ADHD brain dump type way. So I hope that suits us all. It's a bit of a free flow facilitation type. And I will ask for your thoughts in the chat. I welcome your thoughts in the chat. To me, this is a wānanga, so no mai tātou aki tēnei wānanga, and a wānanga is all about the sharing of whakaaro, the sharing of mātauranga. So you are all welcome to contribute. Our thoughts, our ideas might differ, but we can have a mutual respect for one another. So I really welcome you to tēnā tūkuna mai tō whakaaro. So what does Whai Wāhitanga mean? I've named this kōrero Whai Wāhitanga, which we can understand more as we move throughout this kōrero, and I'll break down that kupu, but that kupu came from my time with Arataiahi and Rangatahi Regen. What does it look like to engage young people? How is engaging young people done well? The role of young people as tutu, as mischiefs, dare to question authority, and making time for play. That's a pretty brief brain dump overview of what we're going to cover today. So acknowledging Arataiahi, I've got my source down there, always credit your sources. So we're going to talk about the mana that young people have. And that comes down to the mauri, the whakapapa, the hononga, and te ao. We can break that down a bit more. So mauri is the life spark inherent in all young people. It includes their values, beliefs, skills, and talents. And I believe that everything has mauri. So When you go for a swim in the ocean, when you go for a walk in the ngahere, you can feel the mauri, you can feel the life essence of these places. So both people, place, and things can all have mauri. And a really simple way to think about mauri is balance. So you'll hear often mauri tau, mauri ora. And that means mauri tau is when you have a settled essence in the room. Mauri ora is a living, a thriving essence, right? And all of this, although we've separated them as mauri, whakapapa, hononga, and te ao, these do not exist in isolation. These are an ecosystem, right? And this sort of encapsulates the world of our young people, but also, and I hope that you can see yourself in this as well, because you yourself are a young person. Even if you are youth adjacent, inside you there is a rangatahi. You know, you were once 17, you were once 15. So you can actually understand and apply this concept, this ecosystem, if you will, to your own life. So whakapapa, what's our whakapapa? I think we're all pretty familiar with these concepts. Whakapapa is your genealogy, your connection to your descendants and your connection to your whenua. So your connection to both people and place. When we do our pepeha as Māori, we talk about our awa, we talk about our maunga, we talk about our whānau, and we recognize that all of that makes up who we are. So I actually did my pepeha wrong this morning, because you should always finish with your name, right? So you talk about your maunga, you talk about your waka, you talk about your mara, you talk about your whānau before you talk about you, because all of these things make up who you are. So it's a connection to both people and place, and recognizing that our maunga and our roto and the taiao, the living world, is also our ancestor. So it plays a huge part in our cultural identity. And even if you're not Māori, I want to say that this applies to you as well. You also have a life essence. You also have whakapapa, you have genealogy, you have connection to people in place. Hononga, that's all about connection. And that can be connection to people, place, resources, spirituality, or even for young people, it might be the digital world. And of course, your environment as well. And Te Ao Taiwahi is just that sort of encapsulated. It's the world of the young person, and that can be impacted by big picture influences such as social and economic context and dominant cultural values. So that's just all of that tied up in a pretty bow as one. So I would like you to take a minute to self-reflect, to think of yourself and to apply that ecosystem we just looked at in your own life. So think of your mauri, think of your life essence, think of the balance in your life. Think of your hononga, your connections. Think of your whakapapa that you carry. Think of the genealogy that lives within you, the connection that you feel to people in place. And how does all of that shape your worldview? I'll give you 30 seconds. Even just take a minute to stretch and feel your heart, feel your breath. Connect to your tinana. When I mentioned that we all have a rangatahi, a young person living inside us, I think that's really important to note, that when we tap into our inner young person, our inner rangatahi, we're more likely to be creative, to step outside of our comfort zone, to do things that might not have a monetary value attached to them, just to do them for the sake of feeling connected or feeling inspired. Oh, now I'd like you to think of, you've just reflected on your own world. How does that ecosystem impact you? Now think of the world of a young person today. How is that different? You know, how do you think that the things that they see, the things that they have access to, the world that they grow up in now differs from the world that you grew up in, and how does that shape their worldview? I hope that this can allow you to be more understanding of the unique challenges that our rangatahi of today are facing. Ka pai. So we've looked at that ecosystem. We've looked at these different principles, because these are all principles based on a te ao Māori framework, but what's good for Māori is good for everyone. I truly do believe that. So we can apply these across the board. So how can we take that and how can we use that framework to support our young people? And it's all about the tangas. I'm sure you're all familiar with these kupu: whanaungatanga, manaakitanga, whai wāhitanga, and mātauranga. Whanaungatanga, it's all about relationships, kinship, and a sense of family connection. Manaakitanga, it's expressing kindness and respect for others, emphasizing responsibility and reciprocity. Whai Wāhitanga, this ties into mana, right? So mana determines the right of a young person to have agency in their lives and over the decisions that affect them. From this flows whai wāhitanga, participation. And if we break down that kupu, whai and wāhi, whai means to follow, wāhi means place. So finding your place in the world, right? And that leads to, if you know your place in the world, if you know where you come from, you know that you have mana, you know that no one can take that away from you. You have that cultural protection, that cultural identity, then you are more likely to show up in a way that you feel confident, you feel empowered to contribute in a meaningful way and to participate in society. And mātauranga. Mātauranga is talking about knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and skill. It includes research, individual experience, customary and cultural knowledge, and the beliefs and ideals held by young people and their whānau. So if we can think about this in a professional setting, if you're welcoming and onboarding rangatahi in your workspace, what does it look like to you to uphold values of whanaungatanga, manaakitanga, whai wāhitanga, and mātauranga? Have a little think about that. So to me, it might look like giving them a proper cultural welcome. So it might need to look like a mihi whakatau, bringing their whānau in to meet everyone on the first day too, because understanding that they're not just walking alone, that they have tuakiri, they have identity, and that encompasses their whānau and their cultural beliefs. So having that appropriate welcoming so that they can feel tau, mauri tau, their essence can feel balanced in the workplace. That's one way that we can show manaakitanga or whanaungatanga. Making them a cup of tea, having a shared kai, sharing kai together. That's one way that we can whakanoa, and that's one way that we can build trust and build a deep, long-lasting relationship. So some of these things are just super easy and we all know them, but maybe we're not practicing them, because when we get into this professional space, sometimes we can separate someone's identity, someone's culture, someone's beliefs from work. But I don't think that does us any favors, because we're not looking at it in a big picture way. Ka pai? And Whai Wāhitanga, I had a really good kōrero with someone from Arataohi, because they actually reframed the way that they talk about mana. And I think that that's really important, that as we progress, we should be able to look back at these things, at these systems that we use, at these principles that we use, and say that no longer serves us. We've actually been corrected on this. And to be able to take that on the chin and pivot and change, that shows that we are listening to the worldview of everyone around us, and that we're able to acknowledge when we maybe made a mistake and to correct that. So in old kōrero, we talked about how mana can be sort of changed, how someone's mana can be lifted or lowered by other people, which they've now come back and said that's actually not true. That's mahi atua. So that comes from a higher being, and that's not of another person to determine someone else's mana. And I think that's really awesome. So yeah, how can we take this and apply that in a professional setting? And you might all have whakaaro on this, and I welcome you to chuck that in the chat. And mātauranga, a knowledge exchange, recognizing that young people have a unique world experience. They might be bringing new skills to the table, and their worldview is really of benefit to a workplace. They have they're rich in, you know, cultural diversity. They might be more in tune with, I'm like trying not to offend old people now. They might be more in tune with the things that are going on in today's world. So how can we recognize that as actual valuable mātauranga, you know, their life experiences, and how can we treat them in a way that we don't make them feel small, and that we encourage them to speak up, to have their say, and to use their voice. And we're gonna get into that a bit more. Ka pai, some more self-reflection. A lot of self-reflection on your Wednesday morning, koutou mā. And I'd like you to think about yourself. I'd like you to enter a time machine and catapult yourself back to when you were 15, 17, 19, whatever one kind of is most visible in your brain. What support did you need when you were 15, 17, or 19? And how can you show up as that person for our rangatahi of today? If you have a paper in front of you, I invite you to write this down. If you don't, just sit there and think of it for a minute. Kapai, does anyone want to share in the chat anything that's come up so far? No worries if not. Kapai? All right. Oh, we got something in the chat. Making sure they have non-judgmental and safe places to talk. Kapai. Guidance, safety, and openness. Yeah. Giving time and space to explore identity. I love that. And it really helps when I personally think it really helps when we reflected on our own worldview, and then we think of the world of today and how that would impact the worldview of our young people, and how like their worldview is just probably totally different. I'm 23, and you know, the real life experience of a 15-year-old today is already so different to when I was 15. Finding my voice, utilizing resources, sexual health and services, who to ask and talk to. I'm having some issues showing up. Space for self-determination and choice. Knowledge of opportunities. I had to create my own and had no support or connections to get a step in the right direction. Totally. Beautiful. Thank you all for sharing. And I welcome you to continue to share your thoughts in the chat as we move through this wānanga. Kapai. So Whai Wāhitanga, I've already broken down that kupu in the way that I see it. But here's the quote from Arataiohi, who sort of have created the resources that I've shared so far. Mana is the authority we inherit at birth and we accrue over our lifetime. It determines the right of a young person to have agency in their lives and the decisions that affect them. It acknowledges self-determination, empowered citizenship, and authentic learning. From this flows Whai Wāhitanga, participation. And I love that these two ideas are married, that you can't have Whai Wāhitanga without acknowledging the mana of young people. So we've talked about these frameworks. We've talked about the world of the young person, what shapes that worldview, and then we've talked about the sort of tikanga or principles that can be applied to honor the world of a young person, to uplift and welcome and care for young people. And now I want to apply that to a professional setting. How can we welcome rangatahi, young people, to feel empowered to contribute in the workspace? Or this actually doesn't need to just be in the workspace. This can be applied across the board. I know we sort of have a diverse group of attendees today. So take this in whatever way it applies to you. But I just wanted to recap on those principles as well. I have some notes here. And about whanaungatanga, when we prioritise whanaungatanga, we invest in high trust relationships that are reciprocal, genuine, authentic, intentional, and mana enhancing. Young people are supported with a strong sense of belonging. And I think whanaungatanga is the principle that we want to think of when we look at reverse mentoring. So I'm pretty sure most of us would have heard of reverse mentoring, but I have never actually experienced this in a workspace. So it's something that I haven't seen implemented, or at least implemented well, in the workplace. And it's something that I'd really encourage you all to consider. And it's the idea that our young people have leadership abilities. They have valuable knowledge, they have skills that they bring to the table, and they can also play the role of a mentor. And by creating a reverse mentoring opportunity, you take your rangatahi, your young person, and you pair them with a more senior staff member, and you allow the young person to mentor the more senior staff member. But what that actually does is allow for dual mentoring. So both are really the mentor, but if you just name the senior staff member the mentor, you don't allow for the young person to contribute, and you sort of you tip the power balance a little bit too much in the favor of the senior staff member. Whereas when you flip it like this, you enable the young person to be a teacher, both a teacher and a student, right? So recognizing that both have valuable skills, both have valuable knowledge, that they can share with one another. And this comes from a Harvard Business Review, and the benefits of reverse mentoring have been increased retention of young staff. So that's obviously a green flag. That's a great sign. It means that young people feel valued. It means that young people feel like they're being listened to, and they're more likely to stick around. It's a sharing of digital skills. So that might be one of the benefits received for the senior staff member. And that was actually where reverse mentoring, the framework, was born, out of the need for older staff to be upskilled with digital support. It also can cause culture change, which is a great thing. So by allowing young people to sit in the driver's seat more frequently, we can allow them to lead and to shape the trajectory of your organization in a really powerful, mana enhancing way. And it also promotes diversity. Some things that you might want to consider if you would like to do reverse mentoring in your organization is that the right match is crucial. So you would want to pair an extrovert and an introvert together. You wouldn't want two introverts or two extroverts. What else? You don't actually necessarily have to have them from the same team or the same religious and cultural background. Crossover is beneficial. We can see a diversity of skill set and thought, which is mutually beneficial for both of these people. And address the mentee's fear and distrust. They might both have a degree of fear and distrust of how this is going to work, but also mainly for the young person, it can feel very confronting telling an older staff member how to do things. And that can be really scary. So there needs to be lots of safety measures put in place so that young people feel safe to speak up, to be honest and real, and to really get the most out of that mentoring role that they can. Ka pai. And we need to ensure strong commitment. So often when this has fallen over, when reverse mentoring has fallen over, it's been because of senior staff members not committing to this, and not seeing the value, I guess. Is that because that's what it says? If you're not going to commit, then you're saying that you don't see the value in young people as leaders, and you're not willing to learn from young people. Ka pai. Does anyone have any examples of where they've done this in their workplace and where it's worked well? Some of the benefits that have also come out is that we can share best practice, we can have knowledge exchange, and we can build really strong relationships. And that comes back to the increased retention of young staff. When you put this reverse mentoring in place, it allows young people to feel more connected, more listened to, more heard, and I guess gives them a sense of responsibility as well. Ka pai. Meaningful youth engagement requires collaborative leadership. So this is all about how we can actually take the frameworks that we've heard about at the start of this kōrero and apply it. So speaking of reverse mentoring, that's the student teacher. They're both the student, they're both the teacher. This is sort of the same thing. Every bird is a leader and every bird is a follower. And I think we're probably all familiar with this framework as well. It's, the V formation that birds form when they fly, when they migrate. And we call the front bird in Te Ao Māori, we call that the manu taiko, so the leading bird. And as we know, the leading bird does not stay the leading bird. They constantly rotate so that leadership is shared. And when we have collaborative leadership, we allow for everyone to contribute. We allow for everyone to showcase their skills and abilities, and it's more sustainable. Traditional leadership is all about one person leading from the front. But when we can share that role, when we can know when to pivot as well, we can actually see better results. So I have a question for you all, and I'd like you to put this in the chat. Do you lead from the front? Do you lead from behind? Do you lead from within, or do you lead from beside? What's your chosen method of leadership? So leading from the front is sort of your traditional leadership. It's ideally, I don't think it's always this, but ideally you would be quite a visible leader. You would be highly involved and you would set a good example. Leadership from beside is all about co-leadership, lateral leadership, sharing the workload, working collectively, so a mana to mana approach. No one is above or below. It's all about working together to achieve a shared vision. Leading from within is about fostering leadership from a place of authenticity and personal alignment. And that's not always appropriate. It depends on the context. All of this depends on the context, but what's really beautiful about people who lead within is knowing when to connect to someone on a personal level, to understand that we're all human and that work isn't our whole life. That's actually something that's a hill I will die on as a young person. Going into a professional setting, it's absolutely insane the way that sometimes it's pitched like that this is do or die. This is the end of the world. This is our whole life. When, as we've talked about at the start, it's not our whole life. We have whānau, we have exercise, sports, culture, all of these things that make up a rich and meaningful life. And if we're expected to give 100% to work all the time, then all of the rest of that is going to fall to the back, and we're not going to show up, we're not going to show up as our full selves. Ka pai. And leading from behind, that's all about providing guidance and support, and not micromanaging. So just stepping in when they need a sort of push of support. Ka pai. And you might have a default role of leadership. So you might be a default beside or within or behind or front, but a good leader actually knows how to pivot. They know when to lead from the front. They know when to lead from beside, when to lead from within, and when to lead from behind. And often they'll actually do this. They will change all in one conversation. You might start leading from the front, and then quickly you might realize that they've got a skill set that means they should lead from the front. You might jump to beside, within, behind, all in one conversation. So when that leadership role is shared, each individual is encouraged and empowered to take the front seat and make decisions in the best interest of everyone. So when we work with young people, How do we support them? How do we know when to step back, when to lead from behind, when to lead from within, front, and beside? And what I'd really encourage you to do is ask them. Show them this framework, sit down, talk with them, and ask them, when you approach a new project, when you approach a new task, would you like me to lead from the front? Would you like me to lead from beside? Would you like me to lead from behind? And they can tell you, you know. Often we just assume that we need to lead from the front, but that undermines the leadership abilities of our young people. And know when it's time to step aside. I'm just going to catch up on the chat real quickly. Ka pai. Any thoughts on this? Oops. Just pushing everything over. Ka pai. So yeah, collaborative leadership. Know when to change. Know that it's not sustainable to lead from the front at all times. Biomimicry is what this is. It's when we look at the world, we look at the natural world, the environment, and we mimic what they do. Because usually this is like years and years and years and years and years, generations and generations of evolution to be the most effective method. So this is obviously the most effective method for our manu, for our birds, is to constantly change leadership so that we're getting a fresh pair of eyes, fresh ideas, and someone who's energized to lead the pack, and then everyone behind them can sort of catch that drift, right? Hello. Okay, so we've looked at styles of leadership, reverse mentoring, that framework. You can totally see my ADHD at play in this, right? I'm just trying to like relay this to you so that you're like, how is this interlinked? It makes sense in my brain, and I hope it makes sense in yours too. How do we empower rangatahi to engage in meaningful ways? Because we can sort of put them in these leadership positions, but we can't. It's the whole, you can bring the horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Number one, I think this is, for me, this is the most important thing that you could do when bringing young people on board, and it's create a safe space to make mistakes. The whole point of a wānanga, for me, is to be able to voice myself in a place that doesn't feel judgmental. I can say things that might make me look dumb, might make me look like I don't know anything about this topic, but it's safe. It's a safe space to do that. It's a safe space to be corrected. It's a safe space to learn and unlearn. And when we create a safe space to make mistakes, we set a boundary. We create psychological safety in the workplace, which means that our people, our staff, our network are more willing to speak up, take risks, and ask for help. So I encourage you, when you work with young people, just check in on yourself and think, am I creating a safe space for them to come to me if they don't know what they're doing? If they have they screwed this whole project up, I'm not going to yell at them. I'm not going to make them feel small. I'm going to use this as an opportunity to guide and to support. Ka pai? And when we get our young people speaking up, taking risks and asking for help, we're more likely to progress. We're more likely to see innovation and better results in our mahi. Number two, dare to do things differently. Young people should feel safe to question authority. And if there's any mama or siblings or anything like that on this call, this is really appropriate in the house as well, because that sort of confidence develops at home. So if we can make our younger siblings, our nieces, our nephews, and our children feel really comfortable in themselves, and it does start with that tuakiri, with that ecosystem of knowing who they are, of knowing where they come from, of knowing where they're going, of knowing that they are supported to make mistakes, to speak up, to be treated with dignity and respect, to not be made feel small, then they will feel safe to question authority, which I think is one of the things that we get a lot of flack on as young people, is they don't want us to question authority. For a really long time, it was young people should be seen and not heard. But it's actually really important that we allow young people to question authority. And it doesn't need to be in a way that is rude, but it needs to be in a way that is mana enhancing, but they should be able to say, why is this the way that we do it? Because if we always do what we've always done, we will always get what we've always got. And I do think it is the role of young people to come in and say, but why do we do it this way? But why is this person the leader? Why are they always leading from the front? I would like to have a turn at leading from the front, and they can lead from behind. And giving our young people the confidence, the safe space to learn, to make mistakes, but also giving them the resources to lead and to question. Because often, I've been the only young person in a setting. And that's another thing I want to comment on. Don't just bring in one young person. If you want to bring young people into your space, it's not enough to just bring in one, because you're not creating that safe ecosystem for them to contribute, because they're going to sit in a meeting with all of these youth adjacent people, and it's going to sound like a whole different language that they have no clue of what's being said, and they're just going to be assimilated into that workspace. So they're not going to bring a fresh perspective. They're not going to feel empowered to speak up. They're not going to feel confident. They're not going to question authority, because they're in there on their own. So it's really important that it's not just one young person that we're bringing in, but that they get to have a little community. So 2 or 3 is ideal. And when we dare to do things differently, I want us to remember these 3 things. We need to listen, decide, and communicate. And let's not mess up that order. So don't decide before you listen to young people. You can communicate whenever you want, whatever, but the listen and decide, don't decide before you listen, because often they'll bring young people in and they'll say, now, what do you think about this? And it's just a tick box exercise. Nothing changes. It all stays the same. You've already decided what you wanted to do. You just wanted to tell everyone that you consulted with young people. So properly listen and then decide. And ideally, you would decide together, and you would allow young people to drive in the driver's seat. Ka pai? And also my favorite, I think I've been saying this the whole time, make time for play. This is so important, and it sounds silly, it sounds unprofessional. I don't care, that's okay. I'm all right with being unprofessional. Make time for play. Youth adjacent people love play too. We love play. We love getting outside. It's great for our brains. It's great for us to, it's a great way to be creative. It's a great way to, get rid of mind blocks. So what's a way that you can gamify some of your tasks at work, or create those spaces for people to build relationships? When I was at Whakaata Māori, we had Kafe me te whawhi whawhi every Thursday, and it was card games in Te Reo Māori and a cup of coffee. And it was amazing. And I loved Thursdays because of that. And I think it's really important that we don't underestimate the power of just 15 minutes of play and connection, and how that can impact our mahi. The role of a rangatahi is to be a tutu. So if you are bringing a rangatahi in, again, as I said, just one of them, and assuming that they need to assimilate and do things the way you've always done them, then you're actually not utilizing the rangatahi, because the role of a rangatahi throughout history is to be a tutu. It's to be mischievous. It's to question authority. It's to come up with new ideas. And we've seen this in really awesome ways throughout history. It's actually young people. Research has been done on this. It's actually young people that determine the way we speak. The young people are responsible for the way languages adapt over time, because we come up with our own phrases, we come up with our own colloquialisms, and that totally shapes a language. So throughout history, it has been actually teenage girls who have shaped our languages. So, that is how innovation comes in. And also, it was teenage girls who discovered the Beatles as well, if we want to get into that. So, young people have a really valuable place in society. They actually shape our world. And when we don't put limits on them, when we don't put boundaries on them, when we allow them to learn and make mistakes and not feel small, then we can really get the fullness and reap the full benefits of that creativity and that fresh perspective. So innovation is born when we let young people play, be a tutu, and make mistakes in safe spaces. Just checking my time. I wanted to close us off with this quote. He iti hoki te mokorua nāna I kakati te kahikatia. The grub may be small, but it'll eat through the kahikatia. So although young people might be seen as, ill-equipped for the world, we can take on big challenges and we can do scary things if you give us the opportunity, if you resource us and provide us with support and guidance to take on challenges and to question authority. So what can we do as I'm almost not a rangatahi anymore. What can we do to make rangatahi feel empowered to contribute and to be part of these spaces? We can honor their time and their talent. Pizza isn't payment. Okay, if you want to have youth voice, if you want to consult rangatahi, then acknowledge that they bring skills and fresh perspective, and they bring the world of the rangatahi to that table. So pay them adequately, and pizza isn't payment. Resource rangatahi, give them the tools to realize their aspirations. Don't just bring them in and sit them in the corner desk and and then just leave them to their own devices. Provide them the tools and the resources to realize those aspirations. And when you can, seed power. That's what it really looks like to empower our rangatahi, is when do we know when to move aside? We have a lot of kaumatua or older people in positions of power, and they always talk about rangatahi. It's like a great speech component where we say, rangatahi are our rangatira of a pōpō. And it's like, we are our rangatira of today, and you need to move aside. So know when it is time to move aside, okay? That's just an honest kōrero, and know when it is time to cede power, because at the moment, I do think we are just seeing the same results that we've always seen. So if we want to see new results, we need to see new leadership and have that belief in our young people. We need to provide leadership, training, workshops, and internship opportunities, paid opportunities for our young people to realize their aspirations and to get into the door. That was actually a comment that someone left. I had all of these skills, but I couldn't get into the door. So are we providing the internship opportunities, the workshops, and the training for young people to be equipped to take on these roles? And realizing that university is not the only way, that some people learn hands-on, that some people learn through mentorship and all of these other things. Recognize and celebrate youth contributions. Host community hui and workshops in youth-friendly spaces. Promote them on Instagram and Facebook and places that youth frequent, not LinkedIn. And maintain cultural safety. So think about those whakatau, think about the language that we're using. We've got a really beautiful, diverse background here in Aotearoa, so how can we uplift that so that everyone feels welcome to contribute? Ka pai. That is me. Tēnā koutou. Thank you so much for tuning in, for listening. I hope that you're not sick of my voice. And it was really a pleasure to sit down and to share this wānanga with you all. Tēnā koutou. Thank you so much. Michelle, would you like to do the poll before I close us off with karakia?
No poll needed, just a beautiful ask, please. We'd love you to do the survey. It really helps us know what you need in your community and what's helpful. So yeah, I popped it in the chat. Thanks, everyone.
Beautiful. Ka pai. I will close us off with karakia. I'd just like to thank you all again for making the time to come along to this kōrero. I hope I didn't offend anyone. Just passionate, just a rangatahi. Ka pai. I'll close us off with karakia. Unuhia, unuhia, unuhia te urutapu nui. Kia wātia, kia māma, te hinengaro te wairua, te nākau, te arataka tū. Koirara e rongo whakira ki runga, kia wātia, aida, kua wātia, whano, hara mai te toki, haumie hui e, tae ki e. Ngā mihi tātou kia pai te rā. Thank you all.